So what I'm thinking of doing is just focusing on the elements in the scene that I like the houses and everything, and then kind of structuring everything around that so that it supports those elements. Does that make sense? So I'm going to be doing it 12 by 16, and I'm thinking something like maybe like this here, because I want to include these two houses right here. The only problem is this hill in the distant hill here. I might want to lighten the value of that and push it back. I'm not sure, but I think that's basically the idea right there. Alright, so here's the composition. First I just established where I wanted the water line. I was thinking of having it at, like, you know, the top third using rule of thirds, but I didn't like that so much, so I dropped it down a little bit. You know, I don't want it to be dividing the canvas in half, so it's just a little bit above the halfway mark. And for the houses, you know, I just did basically some simple lines, like little boxes, just to see if the position was where I wanted it. And now I can come in and be more, like, a little bit more careful about the angles of the roof. And there's like a little other building kind of comes along here. There's like a palm tree right about here. So I'm just trying to get the basic shapes in place. Again, this is where the center of interest is, primarily these houses, and then there'll be some reflection in the wet sand. So I kind of want the geometry to be correct, or close anyway. And one thing I do is I'll hold up my brush to the horizon, and then I'll compare how it, you know, because I know that's perfectly horizontal, and then I'll compare it to, like, say, the water line, which is actually, in comparison, you can see it's on a slight angle down. So you can always use the, you know, lock your arm out, use the horizon, and then compare for angles in your subject. So you're going with the lower water line.
Lower water line, yeah. I kind of want to feature the tree a little bit, and yeah, I get a good amount of sky in there.
So you have sky here, some houses here, tree here, and then, yeah, your water
There's that
line.
Shack down there.
Little shack, right? All right, looking good. So starting with darks as usual, alizarin crimson and ultramarine, and thinning with a bit of liquid. I want a little more red in there. So I adjust my dark mixtures, you know, sometimes they're more red, sometimes more blue, just whatever I'm feeling. And I'm just gonna squint at the subject and look for darks. I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat. Holds a lot of paint. It's not particularly, you know, it's not a very precise tool. So you can see compared to the house, it's fairly big. So yeah, I'm just gonna squint and block in the darks. Alright, I'm mixing up a color for the water, and I'm using ultramarine blue, titanium white, some yellow ochre, and then a touch of alizarin crimson to kind of gray it down a bit. I'm going to thin with liquid. Okay, that looks a little too blue. I'm going to add a little more yellow ochre. I don't want too much, so I'll wipe some off on my palette. Maybe a little more. Because my palette is in the sunlight, the warmth is exaggerated, and then also it lightens the value, so I'm sort of compensating for that. So I think that's going to be all right. This is just an approximate color at this point. You know, I will be adjusting as usual. The waves are sort of in a pattern where they start off horizontal and then they gradually, you know, go down on an angle. So in other words, horizontal and then more angled. And I was going for a mid-tone value on this. It seems like it's a little bit light, but I think that's okay. All right, so for the sky, I'm going with titanium white, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and a little bit of phthalo blue. Liquid, of course. And I've got a tree right here. And I use the sky color to kind of carve out the shapes of the trees. And as usual, I'm not too worried about the sky getting like dirty or whatever. I'm keeping the paint layer thin, and I'm going to come over with thicker paint afterwards so I can adjust the value of the sky and the color. There's distant hills here. I'm going to lighten them up artificially. They're pretty dark, but I want to push them back quite a bit. Alright, so for the distant hills, I'm going with titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, and ultramarine blue. I want it to be sort of a grayed down green color. And I want the value to be dark enough that it stands out against the sky, but light enough that, you know, that it pushes it back sufficiently. So again, I may need to adjust the value and the color a bit, but this is a good starting point, I think. All right, I'm mixing a color for the wet sand near the rocks, like here, and yeah, like right in here. I'm using the purple mixture that I had for my darks, and I mixed in a little bit of burnt sienna. I want there to be more red in that. I'm gonna mix in a little cad red light. All right, so for the sand, I'm using titanium white, yellow ochre, a bit of burnt sienna, and I've mixed in a touch of dioxazine purple. Just want to cover the panel, and then I can adjust the colors later. Yeah, it's kind of a cool color, and then I can come over it with some warm tones. A lot of times I find I'll paint sand too light of a value. So what I did was I compared the value of the sand compared to the light portions of the building, and you could see it's darker. That actually looks pretty good. All right, let's see how Tad's doing over here. Cool shape to that tree. I like the random quality there. And yeah, you've got the little road coming in too. I know we're kind of losing, it looks like fog's coming in. Oh no, the dreaded fog. Okay, so there is the block in. I've got the basic information here, so now I'm going to start using a smaller brush. Most of the work was done with this number 8 natural flat, and now I'm switching to a number 4 synthetic flat. I love all the energy in the water there.
Cool.
You got some thick paint going. Also the saturated colors as well. Any challenges in particular that you were struggling with?
There's just so much going on. It's hard to choose what to kind of focus on.
Exactly. There's like so much information.
Yeah.
All right, so these rocks are kind of bothering me here, so I'm gonna eliminate them and just have a wave out here. I think they're kind of drawing too much attention. Yeah, I think that's gonna be better. All right, so here's what I finished up with, and I'll definitely be doing some touch-ups. I think I need to lighten the value of this portion of the building, this orange building here, or brick color building. This is a little bit too dark, so I might lighten that up just a bit. Probably put a few bits of light along the docks here, but it's pretty close. This tree looks like it could use a little bit of a tune-up. Yeah, I would kind of alter the shape of that a little bit. I do like the motion in the water. One thing I did off camera is I added bits of sky reflection in the water. So in other words, there was the green color at first, and then I came over it with ultramarine and titanium white to create some reflected sky. All right, so this is a scene I've painted before and I plan to paint again in the future. Oftentimes when I return to a scene to do an additional painting or to paint it again, I try not to look at the previous paintings because I don't want them to influence me. I want to approach it with fresh eyes and see if I come up with any sort of new ideas. So like I said, I have painted this location before. I will link and actually I filmed it as well. So I will link that video down below in the description. But as usual, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. Got a bunch of extra videos on there, so if that sounds interesting, check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.